Good morning, MacLaren. Today is Monday, April 13th, 2020. The weather today, snowy. The sun rose at 6:24 a.m. and will set at 7:35 p.m. I am going to skip announcements today to jump right back in to Elsie Piddock skips in her sleep. We left off with Ellen Maltman, the best skipper in England, going into the woods to cry because they are not going to be allowed to skip in the new moon on Caburn anymore. And a withered voice speaks to her in the dark. It's a big trouble, ma'am. There's no remedy against it but to cry. Why, yes, there is, said the withered voice. You should skip against trouble, my dear. At this, Ellen's sobs burst forth anew. I'll never skip no more, she wailed. If I can't skip the new moon in on Caburn, I'll never skip no more. And why can't you skip the new moon in on Caburn? Asked the voice. Then Ellen told her. After a little pause, the voice spoke quietly out of the darkness. It's more than you will break their hearts if they cannot skip on Caburn. And it must not be, it must not be. Tell me your name. Ellen Maltman, ma'am. And I do love skipping. I can skip down anybody, ma'am, and they say I skip as never so. They do they? Said the withered voice. Well, Ellen, run you home and tell them this. They are to go to this lord and tell him he shall have his way and build on Caburn, if he will first take down the fence, and let all who have skipped there skip there once more by turns at the new moon. All, mind you, Ellen. And when the last skipper skips the last skip, he may lay his first brick, and let it be written out on paper, and signed, and sealed. But, ma'am, said Ellen, wondering. No words, child. Do as I tell you. And that withered voice sounded so compelling that Ellen resisted no more. She ran straight to the village and told her story to everybody. At first they could hardly swallow it, and even when they had swallowed it, they said, But what's the sense of it? But Ellen persisted and persisted. Something of the spirit of the old voice had got into her words, and against their reason the people began to think it was the thing to do. To cut a long story short, they sent the message to the Lord next day. The Lord could scarcely believe his ears. He rubbed his hands and chortled at the people for fools. They've come to terms, he sneered. I shall have the down, and keep my footpath too. Well, they shall have their skipping party, and the moment it is ended, up go my factories. The paper was drawn out, signed by both parties in the presence of witnesses, and duly sealed. And there it is. And on the night of the new moon, the Lord invited a party of his friends to go with him to Caburn to see the sight. And what a sight it was for them to see! Every little girl in the village was there with her skipping rope, from the toddlers to those who had just turned up their hair. Nay, even the grown maidens and the young mothers were there, and the very matrons too had come with ropes. Had not they once as children skipped on Caburn? And the message had said, all. Yes, and others were there, others they could not see. Andy Spandy and his fairy team, Heels o' Lead, Fleafoot, and all of the rest, were gathered round to watch with bright, fierce eyes the last great skipping on their precious ground. You can see, as all the people are coming up, the fairies are on Caburn as well. The skipping began, the toddlers first, a skip or so apiece, a stumble, and they fell out. The Lord and his party laughed aloud at the comical mites, and at another time the villagers would have laughed too, but there was no laughter in them tonight. Their eyes were bright and fierce like those of the fairies. After the toddlers, the little girls skipped in the order of their ages, and as they got older, the skipping got better. In the thick of the school children, "This will take some time," said the Lord impatiently. And when Ellen Maltman's turn came and she went into her thousands, he grew restive. But even she, who could skip as never so, tired at last. Her foot tripped, and she fell on the ground with a little sob. None lasted even half her time. Of those who followed, some were better, some were worse than others. And in the small hours the older women were beginning to take their turn. Few of them kept it up for half a minute. They hopped and puffed bravely, but their skipping days were done. As they had laughed at the babies, so now the Lord's friends jibed at the babies' grandmothers. "Soon over now," said the Lord, as the oldest of the women who had come to skip, a fat old dame of 67, stepped out and twirled her rope. Her foot caught in it. She staggered, dropped the rope, and hid her face in her hands. "Done!" shouted the Lord, and he brandished at the crowd a trowel and a brick which he had brought. Here's his brick, which he had brought with him. "Clear out, the lot of you! I am going to lay the first brick. The skipping's ended." "No, if you please," said a gentle, withered voice. "It is my turn now." And out of the crowd stepped a tiny, tiny woman, so very old, so very bent and fragile, that she seemed to be no bigger than a little child. And hopefully we can finish up tomorrow. So all of you out there, take heart. Keep tending to your victory garden. Keep a pleasant schedule and a good routine. Try to get outside and roll in the snow today. Be a helper to your family. Please don't tussle with your siblings. If it is your birthday today, April 13th, 2020, happy birthday. I hope you all have a day of kindness, friendliness, and peace. Folks, we are all in this together. We'll see you next time.